Look, hold on, look. Turn this way. They can kiss each other.
Well, that was a movie.
Hello, welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon, this is Justin, and today we're giving our first thoughts on Deadpool 3, aka Deadpool and Wolverine, which was directed by Sean Levy and was written by and starring Ryan Reynolds and starring Hugh Jackman as well. And let's back up a couple minutes before we get into the good stuff. What do you think about the first two Deadpool movies?
I definitely like the first more than the second, but I enjoyed them quite a bit.
I think I reviewed the second one on this channel. I think the first one came out before I had a YouTube channel, or at least to review movies. I also enjoyed the first one more than the second one. I thought the first one was good, but I was a tad bit disappointed with how little they broke the fourth wall. I wanted more. I was like, I think I said this even in the second one, my review of the second one, where I was like, I wanted him to like grab the boom mic and use it to hit people. I was like, because we were coming off the Deadpool video game, you know, and he did stuff like that. Like he went into a room and it just wasn't designed yet. Like they didn't design that part of the video game yet, that map yet. And I was like kind of waiting for that in the movie, and it never went there. And I was like, okay, well in the second one, then they're really gonna break loose and do whatever. And then I agree with you. The second movie just wasn't as good. I didn't hate it either.
No.
But it was definitely a step below the first one. And now we come to the third one. I think it's the best one. I really, really enjoyed this movie so much.
I also agree that it's the best one, and I enjoyed it a lot. It had so much that it could put into this movie that it would be pretty easy for people who have been fans of these superhero movies for some time. This is probably going to end up number one.
Yeah, and I think I managed to like remove all expectations leading up to this. Like I didn't really watch, I saw trailers because I couldn't avoid it, but I wasn't trying to figure out, oh, who's going to be in this, what are the cameos going to be, and they did a good job of only showing some stuff, and I was so happy with the reveals. I think somebody maybe would be disappointed with certain, or lack of certain reveals that they were expecting, but just don't have expectations and you'll love everything they give you, because everything that they gave me I was so happy to get. And I mean, I mentioned the boom mic thing. He even actually finally fucking grabbed a boom mic. I've been waiting 3 movies for this, and he finally did it. He didn't hit anybody with it, but he grabbed a boom mic.
They definitely really broke the fourth wall this time.
Yeah, you probably could even more than they did, to be fair. But at a certain point, it's like, what's the point? So I really enjoyed the level that they did with it. I enjoyed the references so much. I thought the comedy was great. I think the story, although definitely in that new age MCU level of we're doing cameos and comedy, we're prioritizing that kind of over story, it still felt like there was enough story in there that I wasn't like, there's no story, you know, like it didn't feel like I mean, No Way Home is still a fun movie, but that one, especially on a rewatch, you're like, man, there's no plot here, it's just cameo porn. This one I feel like holds a tiny bit, I haven't seen it a second time obviously yet, but I feel like it will hold up a tiny bit better because I feel like the story is just a little bit better than something like No Way Home. And so that would be, if anybody said that they still like Deadpool 1 the best, I could see why, because it has a more straightforward, typical story. My problem with it is too straightforward and typical for Deadpool. Deadpool feels like it should be a little bit all over the place. And this plot did kind of remind me of the Deadpool video game a little bit, where it's like, it kind of just felt like we're going everywhere. We're doing anything we want to do because who cares? It's Deadpool and that's fun. So, like I said, I'm repeating it again. This is my favorite one. I'm so happy. This is the first movie all year, by the way. I think that I didn't check my watch at least once this whole runtime. I'm trying to think, maybe I didn't during Late Night with the Devil, but if that's the only other one that I didn't, if that's the case. I was just like, I thought about it around, I don't even know when because I didn't check, but around like an hour and a half maybe, because this movie's just over 2 hours, I think.
I didn't even check.
And I was like, I wonder how much is left. And then I went, I don't care. I'm enjoying it. Oh, man. I'm so happy. This is the first movie in a long time, especially from the MCU, that I think, like, surpassed my expectations. I did mention Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is, I would say, the last time I really enjoyed a a Marvel movie. I don't remember when that was, though. Was that last year? It was May of last year, yeah. So over a year ago. And I did enjoy the several references to Marvel not being what it once was.
They really went to town here.
And taking jabs at Fox too. Taking jabs at everybody, honestly. Taking jobs at Honda. Like, why? What did Honda do?
Everything.
I really feel like this movie, the most of our talk about this movie is gonna be spoilers.
It has to be, because that's most of the movie.
Yeah.
It really is in the No Way Home style of just all the cameos. If you've been a fan for a while, they are just looking to please you, and they do a great job of it.
Yeah. I will say that it surpasses, in some ways, No Way Home's cameos in that I didn't expect, and I don't mean I didn't expect because there's some that I was I didn't see that coming, but then it happens, and you're like, oh, okay. But there was at least two moments that I was like, oh my God, when it happened, and I was so happy. And it's that's hard to do when you're letting everybody know, hey, we're doing the craziest things possible.
I don't know if they're warming up or just showing off.
I think they're showing off. Anyway, speaking of craziest things possible, when you come with a movie where you're saying, I'm going to do the craziest stuff possible, like when Doctor Strange into the multiverse, whatever that was called, Multiverse Madness, whatever that was.
Multiverse Madness.
You knew crazy stuff was going to happen,
yeah.
And so nothing in it surprised you.
Yeah.
This one, same thing. It goes, we're going to do some crazy stuff, and you're like, okay. And then it surprised me at least once, kind of twice, honestly.
I have to say, this is part of my power of barely, if at all, watching trailers. I think I maybe saw, I don't know if I actually saw one of these trailers in theaters and paid attention. I know I've seen some of their little ad spots, but they didn't really show anything. Outside of one cameo I could have guessed. Everyone else surprised me, basically.
Wolverine. He surprised me. I didn't know he was going to be in this.
I saw this mask. I was like, what is this? Who could this be?
Yeah, no, obviously there's some cameos that are given away in the trailers. Like, people knew Lady Deadpool was going to be in this. People knew Sabretooth was going to be in this.
I did hear about Lady Deadpool. I did not hear about Sabretooth. So...
he was in the
surprise.
trailer. Yeah.
I didn't see the trailer.
And, yeah, so, I mean, there's a lot, they let you know, we're gonna do some goofy stuff, and so I was ready, but it still got me. I was like, oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it was Deadpool.
Really?
You have to expect them to be real goofy.
A lot of people, I think, were concerned about bringing Wolverine back after Logan, because they're like, you gave him the perfect ending, don't bring him back, don't do it. And I will say, without giving anything away, I think the story did complete justice to the character, and I'm not mad at all that they brought him back. This movie definitely seemed like it was going to go in a more comedy-centered route, even more so than the other two. I mean, the first one especially had a very rom-com feel to it. Obviously, violence in there as well, and, stuff like that. But, it was... And the second one, it's centered at its heart around Deadpool and the love interest. And this, you're replacing the love interest essentially in a lot of ways with Wolverine.
Love interest.
And so you're like, what is that going to cheapen the story? And I think some might feel that way a little bit, but I thought that they handled all of the moving parts extremely well, and I was really happy with the little nods to the previous films and the romantic interest and where that story had gone since the last movie. I thought it was handled at least well enough. It's not the focus of the movie anymore, but I thought it was handled well enough.
Yeah, their romantic plot line is just sort of there, and it's decent. Its resolution is whatever.
Yeah, it's not the focus anymore.
No.
And that was fine for this movie. It didn't have to be.
No, and it worked to set up the movie, and then you let Wolverine take over.
If I had one, if any, nitpicks at all, I would say that there was probably a tiny little short moment around the middle of the movie where I thought it dragged a little bit. But, like I said, that's nitpicking. I've really struggled to give a Deadpool movie an 8, so I'm sticking at a 7.5 for now. But I really, really enjoyed this movie. I did.
I'll give it the 8 for you.
All right. We're going to get into spoilers now. Like I said, this is kind of a little short and sweet because there's not a whole lot you can talk about, but just take my word for it. It's great.
Yeah, if you enjoyed the first two and you've seen a lot of these Marvel films over the years, you're going to love this one.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to.
I mean, I wasn't even nerdy enough to get all the references. Like, there was a lot of references that are deep cuts. So, I mean, I got 90% of it, but there was still a 10% in there that I was like, I don't know what that's about, but haha. So that's what we had to think. Like I said, we're going to get into spoilers now, though. So if you don't want anything spoiled, please go watch it first, come back, and then we can talk about it then. Also, don't forget to like, share, if you're new here, subscribe. Thanks, guys. Bye. So, spoilers! Let's save the heavy spoilers. We'll start with light spoilers first, because there may be people that want some spoilers, but not everything spoiled. So we'll start light.
Nuclear bomb, they all died.
Yeah, what a plot twist, am I right? But yeah, so obviously you'll find this stuff out from just going to IMDb at this point, probably. But so there was some debate about who was going to be Lady Deadpool, and it was obviously Blake Lively. Some people were saying, oh, it's going to be Taylor Swift. No, it's Blake Lively. And the funny thing is, they never actually show that. You had to wait till the credits. I mean, you can tell by looking at her that it's Blake Lively if you know what Blake Lively looks like.
Yeah,
but she never takes her mask off or anything, and she says like 1 or 2 lines. But yeah, so it was Blake Lively, for anybody wondering. So the whole thing with Wolverine coming back. So they lead you to believe at a certain point in this movie that Wolverine is going to sacrifice himself and die for the greater good. They and even when they were going that route, I was like, he's going to survive. Like, I didn't think he was going to die. But then they don't even get that far, and Deadpool comes in and goes, oh no, I'm going to sacrifice myself instead. And you're like, well, he's definitely not going to die.
Yeah.
And then they do it together, and neither one of them die. So at the end of this movie, they're both still alive. Their timeline has been fixed to an extent. And so there is a possibility of Hugh Jackman coming back as Wolverine in the future. I mean, they reference it, him playing him until he's 90 multiple times.
Yeah.
And I just really doubt that they're going to keep going the way that Hugh Jackman's talked about the character. He's like, I'm too old to do this anymore. I know he's been saying that for years and he keeps doing it, but I feel like the only reason he came back was because he never got to do the Wolverine Deadpool thing, and now he has. It'd be even harder to bring him back again. I think if anything, he'll do another one with Deadpool. I don't think he'd do it in any other capacity, though.
That's really it. Now, if they really start to integrate X-Men into the greater MCU, I could see him making a cameo.
That's
about it.
Sure,
I wouldn't expect him to be
recast for the main Wolverine, but he could do a cameo.
I would not expect him to be in that, but I could see them doing another Deadpool Wolverine, because I feel like they would probably enjoy working together again. Yeah, and it could probably make a lot of money. Other than that, I really don't feel like we need to bring Wolverine back in any sort of capacity.
Yeah, I agree. I also feel like I don't think that there's a need for another Deadpool movie. I think
it's fine if it just stops here.
I think I either should just stop here, because I mean, very few characters get more than 3 movies as the main character anyway. Yeah. I think Captain America is the only one who did, you could argue, because people count the Avengers movies as Captain America movies. But did anybay else get more than that? I mean, Thor. Spider-Man will. Thor, well, half those don't count.
If we're trying to pretend Captain America gets the Avengers films, Thor has legit 4 movies.
Yeah, but they don't count because they're terrible.
But he has legit 4 movies.
That's a good point, but it's very rare that you go beyond 3 with these characters. And if they did, I think that they need to go back to the romance angle, because like that hasn't really fully resolved in my mind. Because in this movie, okay, so you rewatched Deadpool 2 recently. Remind me how that wraps up, because I don't remember. I was like, so she's dead at the beginning and he has to time travel to get her back, right?
Yeah, I didn't finish it. So.
You didn't finish it? Okay. I was like, I didn't remember that movie at all, because I didn't like it, really. I had no desire to watch it a second time.
Yeah, I started late and then couldn't finish it while I was at work, so... Yeah.
So regardless, though, in this movie, they're separated. They start out separated, and then they do give you a flashback as to why. She calls him a loser, essentially, and then he kind of goes and gets depressed about it. And it's like, at the end of this movie, it's like, that's resolved, but, like, loosely, like it's a background thing.
It's clear that they're getting back together, but it seemed very quick. I know he went on this journey, and
she didn't see
somewhat changed. I guess she just senses he's changed because he's done. I guess he brought back Logan. I guess she'd know he's dead in their world. So
but so like for me, doing another Deadpool movie, the only reason I would do it would be to continue that story rather than I don't need another Deadpool Wolverine. I wouldn't be mad if there was another one unless it sucked. I wouldn't be mad in principle that there's another one. I'm not asking for one at this point.
So I did finish rewatching the first one.
Sure.
And so a lot of the very beginning of the first one is them together in their relationship. And I really like the two of them together.
Yes, yeah.
Their banter is great together. I kind of miss that. And I forget how much of that was in 2. I don't think
she's dead
now
for most of the movie.
Yeah,
but
I got past that part.
There was some very sentimental moments with them.
And sentimental moments are cool and all, but I kind of want them to be just back to playfully around each other again.
Well, the funny thing is, I was actually kind of surprised she was in this movie because the actress, like a month ago, was like, "Yeah, I hated working with Ryan Reynolds. I don't like working with him."
Oh.
So I was like, "Oh yeah, that's why they're moving in a different direction." Obviously, also Wolverine. And then she was in this movie. I was like, "You are? Okay, sure, I guess. All right." So I would also kind of at this point be a little shocked if they did another movie centered around them, but that's what I would rather get at this point if they did another one. I'm also, like I said, completely fine if they just stop here.
Yeah, this was fine.
Apparently this Deadpool is in the same timeline as Logan, which is weird because that doesn't make any sense because the Deadpool in Logan's timeline was the one without a mouth. But regardless, we'll throw out that plot hole because let's pretend that makes any sort of sense. Because Logan has died in his timeline, now he's the central figure of this timeline.
Yeah.
His whole timeline is now going to cease to exist in the next few thousand years, but there's a knockoff Kevin Spacey character who has decided, why bother letting it take its natural course? I've got this machine that lets me do it in 72 hours.
For those of you that have seen the show, it's Tom from Succession, but British. Okay? It is literally Tom, but British.
And so he's got that thing going. They get put into this, like, I forget what they call it, but a limbo of sorts. It's just like this desert world.
The Void or something?
The Void, yeah. It's basically like Australia, because it's a prison for the outcasts, and it's a desert. And then they do a parody of Mad Max, but instead of gasoline, they're powered by solar panels, and I lost it, because like, of course you'd be powered by the whole I'm not a fan of Mad Max. I think the whole franchise is dumb, but that was such a funny, subtle joke, just a jab at Mad Max, like, use solar energy, you morons. Anyway, and so then you find out that like there's this character who is like the twin sister of Charles Xavier, and she's got essentially the same powers and the same thing, but she's in this universe evil, and she's the only way they can get back to the real world, but she's evil, so they have to kind of like defeat her in theory to do that.
Yeah.
So it's like that plot really doesn't interest me at all. It's a good outlet to meet various different multiverse characters where you've got Elektra and you've got Channing Tatum finally playing Gambit.
That was incredible. Channing Tatum's as Gambit shows up. We get X-23 all grown up.
Yeah.
We get,
which I figured she was going to be in this, but I was still happy to see her.
We get
a million different versions of Deadpool.
We get Elektra from Daredevil 2003.
And she's like, Daredevil died. He's like, I'm sorry, it's fine.
It's fine.
And then I guess the biggest thing in the whole movie to me was Blade.
Oh yeah, Blade.
Wesley Snipes.
That was insane.
Returns as Blade.
I would have never
in a million years would I have thought that was gonna happen. Huh? I was in awe. There's very few times I see a movie and I'm just at a loss for words that something happened, and that was one of them. Because how the hell did they convince him to do that?
Like, I didn't think we'd see him until the new Blade. He just make a little cameo there or something.
I didn't think he'd be involved in that.
I just think he'd be a cameo, but...
I thought he hated everybody involved and never wanted to do it again. I also loved how he was like, I am the only Blade and there'll never be another Blade. And Deadpool just looks at the camera. Which actually could age a couple different ways, because that new Blade movie keeps getting delayed and keeps not being made. So I'm like, that joke can look one of two ways moving forward. Which is why I think they had Deadpool just look at the camera and not say anything, because that joke holds up either way. Oh, man.
Did we pass over one cameo? I don't think he was in... I don't know if he was in the trailer, because I didn't see the trailer, but freaking...
Chris Evans.
Chris Evans,
as
Johnny Storm.
And they do it in such a perfect way, because it's just Chris Evans at first, and he's got
you see the blue, you think it's Captain America Chris Evans.
Yeah, and he does a superhero landing.
Yep.
And he's got the spiky hair, which was not, Captain America, but he's got the beard, which is.
Yeah.
He never had the beard as Johnny Storm. And you're also just thinking, well, of course it's Captain America. I was sitting there going, really? He came back for that? What a weird thing for him to do.
Yeah, that was
and
odd, but I just figured...
Flame on! And I was like, yes!
That was incredible.
It
literally took me a couple of seconds after he did that to really remember, oh my gosh, he was in the original Fantastic Four stuff. Well, I mean, not original, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, that was the other one that got me, because anybody else... I guess in distant third place was Channing Tatum as Gambit. It didn't shock me, but I was happy to see it. I mean, obviously, I wasn't expecting Elektra, but when she showed up, I was like, of course.
I would have never guessed Elektra.
But
it's funny.
Only one that genuinely was like, there's no way. If you could have given me a million guesses, and I never would have gotten to Wesley Snipes as Blade.
No.
And then Chris Evans as Johnny Storm.
I wouldn't have guessed that either.
I probably would have gotten there around, 10,000 or something.
Yeah.
Like, I would have gone there eventually.
If you want to give me 100 guesses, maybe I'll get there. I'll start listing every single person who's ever been outside of the MCU.
Yeah, but I was more expecting, I expected Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man sooner than I expected Chris Evans as Johnny Storm, because that was something people were rumoring, because it's like, Hugh Jackman and Tobey Maguire were like the two guys in the early 2000s. And then Ben Affleck came along and tried to do it and nobody cared. But it was Hugh Jackman and Tobey Maguire. They were the two that people were like, we should get a crossover, because nobody thought Deadpool was ever going to be put to film back then.
Yeah.
And so, I kind of did expect a little bit a Tobey Maguire cameo. But like I said, I'm not disappointed at all with the cameos we did get at all.
No.
I was happy with it.
I'm very, I mean, I never would have expected a Tobey Maguire cameo, but I'm very pleased with the ones we got. And for me, the only one that I don't know if she's in the trailer, but the only one I guessed was X-23. Because it just made sense to try to get her. Because I know she was just in the new Star Wars show. So I was like, oh, she's acting still.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a good chance she's in this.
Yeah, and I, a month ago as well, I saw she was being interviewed about that, and then they asked her about the new Deadpool Wolverine movie, and she's like, oh yeah, it'd be fun if I was in that. I'm like, yeah, so you're in it.
Yeah.
Nobody can lie about these things anymore and get away with it. But, yeah, so obviously the story, like I said, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not, like I said, No Way Home. It's slightly better than that, but it is definitely just a vehicle to see these two characters, and they did not disappoint. Everything with Wolverine and Deadpool was so much fun. And like I said, they really did salvage the whole Logan versus this by making the Wolverine from a different timeline. And that particular Wolverine being a fuck-up in that timeline where he failed his timeline, and so now he has a chance to redeem himself. So he gets to go through that whole character arc again. He's not the hero. He has never saved the day before. Now he's like this insecure, older version of Wolverine, whereas, kind of similar with Logan, where he's an aged version, but that version has been through a lot.
Yeah.
He's defeated a lot of bad guys, and now he feels like a failure simply because he's old. This one, he's never really been the hero, and he's aware of that.
He's just old and drunk.
Yeah, and, not cool.
And drunk.
Yeah, he's not quite as Logan age, but
still ripped.
Yeah. I was actually shocked at the lack of homosexual references there, because Deadpool is pansexual, and I really expected him to try to like kiss, like at the final scene, or not the final scene, but like when he was saying goodbye to him, I thought he was going to be like, okay, now let's kiss or something. Like I really expected that, but they really shied away from that side of things, which I guess.
Hey,
we haven't gone there yet as a society. We're not ready
They
yet.
saved it all for the outfit fitting. Okay, you got like half a dozen ass slaps and ball grabs in a matter of seconds.
Time, because so it's like it's funny at first where he's like pulls up his pants and slaps him, then he zips him up and he grabs his crotch, and I was like, haha, and then it cuts to something else, and then you get a second ball grab, but it's really quick, and so you're just like, wait, what? And then it keeps coming back, and he was like, oh my god,
and it just starts alternating between the two rapidly.
Oh my god, this movie was so funny.
He walks out. Your tail was a predator.
It was a predator, but it's okay. I liked it. Oh my god, yeah. This movie was fun. Yeah. I mean, even just from the first scene with him fighting with the dead body of Wolverine. Oh, that's fun.
Oh yeah, no, that was hilarious.
Oh, it's good.
He digs up the dead body of Wolverine. He's like, I know you're just down here, just like having a shit time in this grave.
I know I'm not a doctor, but you look fucking dead.
Just adamantine skeleton.
Dude, yeah. No, this was to me the funniest of the three. Like I said, the story, you could argue the story of the first one is more typical and therefore is more better to a lot of people. To me, it was a little boring. This one, the story isn't very well written, but it's fun, and that's fine. It allows for a lot of cameos and jokes and stuff. So
yeah, I'd probably say the first one had a better story. But yeah, this
so
one was just so hilarious.
It's just like superhero becomes a superhero and saves the girl. It's
Yeah, and I'm fine with that, mostly because I guess I don't really have a whole lot of experience with Deadpool outside of these movies.
Yeah.
And while it is typical, the cursing, the blood and stuff kind of took it over.
This one was probably the most violent one, which I think Disney had something to prove there, because it was just like, oh, it's gonna get censored because it's Disney, and
They couldn't do that to Deadpool. If they were going to continue it, they couldn't do that to Deadpool.
They not only didn't censor it, I think it took it up a notch in some areas. Now, some of the effects were goofy, like Johnny Storm being skinned alive was goofy.
No,
they did that for goofs and laughs more than, gore. I will say, though, the CGI wasn't great all the time, but the parts with her sticking her hand through the guy's face was the best CGI has looked in Marvel in a decade at least. I feel like it was good. And I took a step back because normally, lately at least, in these movies, when there's something that obviously CGI, you're just laughing or cringing at it. And then it was like the third time she was doing the weird thing. It was like finally with the bad guy she was doing it. Yeah. Who, by the way, you could tell was a bad guy from the first scene, even if you didn't know anything about the character, because he didn't have an iPhone, which they pointed out and I thought was hilarious. Because Apple doesn't allow bad guys to own iPhones in movies, in case you didn't know. And so he points out that he's got an Amazon phone or something, and I was like, so he's a bad guy. That's funny. But anyway, it was when she was doing it with him and like her hands were going in and out of his eyes and nostrils and then running up and down his cheeks, and I was just like, hold on a second, obviously I know that's CGI, duh, because it just is.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not questioning anything about how it looks. And I was like, that's so rare anymore. Like almost every superhero movie, you're like, man, that CGI sucks. And for the first time, and I don't know how long, I wasn't thinking that. I really wasn't. I love when Deadpool, he does the old switcheroo. He's like, I'm gonna sacrifice myself instead of Wolverine doing it. And then he closes the thing and he's like, I'm gonna be Marvel Jesus or Spock. I could be Spock too. And then he leaves. And then he comes back and he keeps doing like goofy gags with the windows. So he's like, he does the stairs. He pretends to fly and stuff. Oh, that was great. It did such a great balance of the serious and the comedy, because they had to do some serious stuff with Wolverine's character and a tiny bit with Deadpool as well. But I mean, the jokes kept coming.
Yeah, and the seriousness was all right. It was there.
Yeah,
it really wasn't the focus at all, and really just brushed me by. I was there for all the cameos and the comedy. and that they turned up. I loved it a lot.
Yeah, that's definitely one area you can say that the first movie was better. It was the serious stuff. Like you said, the romance is so good between them in the first one, that whole stuff. And this movie doesn't have anything that really comes close on a dramatic level, but it's still good enough, you know, that you're not annoyed about it or you're not cringing at any of it, and like it holds it. Like sure, would I have liked the Wolverine flashback or the Wolverine story to just hit home a little better than it did? Sure, but it was good enough that I'm like, all right, I understand where he's coming from, and I sympathize with him.
And you know, if this was a Wolverine movie, just Wolverine, of course we get a little more focused on that, get a little more serious.
But we
maybe it'd be
had
more
Logan. You know? Yeah, we already had Logan.
So this is just a vehicle to just get ourselves a new Logan, and let's hit the comedy and the cameos.
Yeah, because like they also don't waste really a whole lot of time getting Wolverine, because like he's like, oh, Wolverine's dead, and you're like, okay, we're gonna spend an hour trying to get nope, it was like 15 minutes.
Yeah, it was like just like 2-3 worlds, and it's like, oh, that one.
Yeah, it was like, oh, Henry Cavill, which I knew was gonna happen.
I didn't know it was gonna happen. Now I forgot about that. What was it? The Cavalrine.
Yeah, Calverine.
Yes.
The one that got me though was comic accurate Wolverine, where he's 5 feet tall.
Yes,
that was hilarious. Yeah, man, this movie's good. I mean, we could spend all night talking about all the jokes because they're great. This movie's to me the funniest of the three.
Absolutely.
Like I said, my favorite of the three. Once again, if you say the first one's better, I understand why though.
Story-wise, I think it is, but this would be my favorite too.
Yeah, this was just fun. So go watch it. I think we can leave it there. We don't have to spoil every single joke for you if you haven't seen it. Just go watch it, come back, and we can talk about it then. Like I said, really knocking on the door of 8. I'm going to probably just stick with a very strong 7.5. He said 8.
I'll give it the 8.
But yeah, that's what we had to
front
think.
to back.
Yeah. Best movie of the year so far?
It's kind of sad to say, but yeah, kind of. I mean, it's the first one. I think it's the first one this year, front to back. That
I didn't have a complaint. Yeah. Other than that tiny nitpick of it dragged it a little bit in the middle. Did you feel that way? I thought it dragged just a little bit in the middle, right before they met the other Deadpool.
Yeah, I can see that.
Right around there.
Right after Chris Evans, right before another Deadpool.
Yeah, it dragged just a tiny bit. I did love all the Deadpool stuff, though. All the multiple Deadpools and them killing all of them. And the one is just in the driver's seat of the bus going, oh no, gets shot. That, he uses the other Deadpool as a human shield for no reason.
Oh my gosh,
for no reason, just because he doesn't like him. He holds him up and he gets shot.
Because he uses Nicepool as a human shield, expecting that since he's a Deadpool, just like everybody else, he'll regenerate. But no, not Nicepool.
Bleeding out of his mouth. Like, say you're gonna live. Say you're gonna live. I'm gonna live. Say it louder. I'm gonna live.
he picks him up again, starts using him as a shield. The guy's like,
for no reason, because the main Deadpool
he
getting
just
shot
stops
a million
in the
times.
middle.
Yeah. Why'd you stop? Catch my breath. What? Can't you use your legs?
No, actually, I'm paralyzed.
Oh, okay.
You're gonna make it.
Man. Yeah. Anyway, so great, very enjoyable.
Yeah. Hilarious.
Go watch it. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.